Good morning and welcome to the first IATC AICT conference in Southeast Asia. I'm Pawit Mahasrayanand, the president of IATC Thailand and executive committee member of IATC. I would like to thank all of you again for joining us here in Bangkok this week. Okay, to get everything rolling, please welcome Sukanya Sompaiboon, who's Vice President of Chulalongkorn University.
Good morning, everyone. When I was studying performing arts, the subject I worried about the most was performance criticism. I felt that it was field that required us to see, think, breathe, explore, and interpret in order to make the reader see what they hadn't seen, read something differently, and most importantly, provoke discussion. As an actress and singer, the thing I fear most is the critique. But at the same time, I eagerly await the reviews. Those reviews are valuable intellectual treasures that's true by someone who understands the art of performance and invites the audience to delve into what happens on stage and screen, taking them beyond what is presented, into the origins, the context, the aesthetic components, and most importantly, the knowledge that should always accompany the particular performance. I'm fortunate that in my past performances, Ajahn Pom Pawit has been generous with his insights, but it has also made me realize that in order to contribute to the development of performing arts, we must also consider the ecosystem of theater, including the socio-economic, cultural, political, human, and non-human issues that surround it and arts. Welcome everyone joining us on site at the Mahachakri Silinthorn building and online from anywhere in the world for Trans Southeast Asia's first AICT IATC conference. Over the next 2 days, not 2 years, sorry, we will hear various discussions on international contemporary performance covering topics such as transition, transformation, transmediation, transcendence, transdisciplinary, transhuman, transtemporal, transcultural, transformation, and transtopia. For you, considering trans and contemporary performance as a first word, was it a second word or question beginning with trans that comes to mind as a theater practitioner, scholar, and critic? A big thank to all conveners of the IATC International Association of Theatre Critics, Thailand Center, and the Department of Dramatic Arts, Faculty of Arts, Chulalongkorn University. We hope that this conference will serve as an important kick-off and demonstrate that amid disruption, theatre practitioners, scholars, and critics can still find ways to create, clarify, and critique. And this is context. Trans will be another key milestone, so I hope everyone enjoys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I asked her to speak for 5 minutes and she kept to the time. Okay. So once again, I've never written any negative reviews about her performance. That's why she's here today. And not only now, but she's also presenting her paper tomorrow. Yes, okay. Okay, we are moving on. Since we are now at Faculty of Arts, Chulalongkorn University, one of the first faculties at this first tertiary institution in Thailand. We have with us this morning the Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Chulalongkorn University, Suradet Choti Udompan. Please welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ajahn Pawit, who is my longtime friend. We have known each other since we were students, in this area of the faculty, more than 30 years already. Yes, I mean, can't believe how time flies. Anyway, welcome everyone to the Faculty of Arts Chulalongkorn University as we're celebrating 108 years of establishment alongside Chulalongkorn University, which is one of the oldest universities in Thailand. So such a honor for us to be part of this event. And we've been organizing so many international conferences, but this one also intrigued me in the way that, the titles and the style of the conference, somehow is different, from other conferences that I have been. Example, we told me that, the topic of the conference is trans. So like Ajahn Sukanya said, there could be so many words, with trans in front. I myself come from the discipline of comparative literature, and we do a lot of transnational literature. But I think, that transnationality also, kind of part and parcel of what we're doing anyway. So I hope that, this conference will transcend, our expectation that we'll be able to move across disciplines and be able to engage, with different scholars from different disciplines, especially in theater criticism, alongside with, people from other disciplines to enable sort of like a continuation of knowledge. So I hope that, the 2 days or 3 days that you'll be in Bangkok will be enriching experience, that you'll be enjoying not only stimulating discussion on theater criticism, but you'll be able to enjoy Thai food, Thai, kind of lifestyle, for the next couple of days. So, and thanks again, for example, for such a close connection. Also, thanks for the International Association of Theater Critics, alongside with, other partners of us, So I hope that, this conference will be another success, like other conferences that, we've been organizing. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
ขอบคุณมากครับอาจารย์สุรเดชอาจารย์สุรเดช is also an avid theater goer, but every time I invite him to our productions, his question is there an audience participation? Okay. Thank you very much. And he's a professor in comparative literature. Yes. Okay. So, do we, Savita, do we have a, yes, so he's on Zoom. Okay, our next speaker is the president of International Association of Theater Critics, who's joining us via Zoom, okay, from Illinois, USA. Please welcome Jeffrey Eric Jenkins.
Thank you. Thank you, Pawit. Can you all hear me okay? Well, I see myself. It's very disturbing. So.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Okay, right. Thank you. Dear friends, esteemed colleagues, and honored guests, good morning to you in Bangkok. My name is Jeffrey Eric Jenkins, and I am the 14th president of the International Association of Theater Critics. Let me first express my regret at not being able to join you this week. Many of you there are among my closest friends in the global theater community, and it pains me not to be able to join you for this auspicious occasion. On behalf of the association, I want to thank our executive committee member, Pawit Mahasaranand, for managing the process that resulted in what we know will be an amazing few days of theater, conversation, and collaboration. I have been asked by your generous hosts, to whom we are extremely grateful, to speak as we open the conference. It is my profound honor and pleasure to offer words of welcome to you for this extraordinary gathering in the beautiful and vibrant city of Bangkok. It is difficult to believe that this conference is the first to be co-sponsored by the International Association of Theater Critics in Southeast Asia. It may have taken us a long time to get to Bangkok, but it is surely the beginning of a long, fruitful, and rich relationship with our colleagues in the region. Over these next days, dramaturgs, critics, artists, and thinkers from more than a dozen nations are convened to explore the expansive possibilities of trans. Let us not be distracted by those who would co-opt the term for petty political gain. This word, trans, carries with it an energy of movement, a charge of transformation, a promise of new horizons. In theater, trans has always been at the heart of our creative practice. Transitions between scenes, between characters, between emotional states are the lifeblood of performance. Transmutations, where a body becomes a landscape, a whisper becomes a scream, remind us that the boundaries of art are fluid and constantly evolving. Transformation is our shared language, a language that invites audiences to see the world not as it is, but as it might become. Today, as we move deeper into the complexities of the 21st century, trans demands even greater attention. Transnational collaborations remind us that no culture thrives in isolation. The journeys of transgender individuals challenge us to reconsider identity, embodiment, and authenticity on our stages. And trans, as a symbol of movement, flux, and change, calls us to reflect on the power of theater to illuminate what is hidden, to amplify what is silenced, and to celebrate what is possible. Over these days, may this conference foster communications that are courageous, compassionate, and catalytic. May we challenge old assumptions and embrace new ideas. And may we be inspired in Bangkok to shape a theatrical landscape that is as diverse, dynamic, and daring as the world itself. Welcome to the conference. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for leading us. And thank you especially for hosting us. Let us begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey, who's joining us. And I just found out this morning, that the U.S. has started their daylight saving time, but not yet in Europe. So yeah, so it's like I thought that it would be 8:30 in the Midwest, but actually it's 9:30 p.m. in the Midwest where Jeffrey is speaking from. So thank you very much. Okay, we are still on time, on schedule, so we'll keep on schedule. Okay, we'll start with our keynote address, and in 2012, IATC Thailand was accepted by the General Assembly of IATC officially as a national section, and it's the first national section in Southeast Asia. And back then, the president of IATC was Yun Cho Kim. Okay. And so I have to say that this conference and also this Young Critics Workshop have also been inspired by Yun Cho Kim's encouragement, okay, and examples that he have set like for us here in Asia. Okay, so please welcome Honorary President of AICT IATC and Honorary Professor of Korean National University of the Arts and former Artistic Director of the National Theatre Company of Korea, Yun Cho Kim.
Thank you very much. Before I speak, I'd like to thank you, all the organizers of this conference. I know I organized the Extraordinary Congress of IATC in 2006, and I know how much work we need to do to organize this conference. Although it's a smaller, but with the limited number of assistants, all the things that you are doing is really wonderful. And I thank you, the leadership of the university, and the leadership of the AICT, the IATC section of my speech. The title of my speech is How to Get Out of the Transit Camp in the IATC. This IATC means it does not represent our association. It represents International Airport of Theater Critics. So don't get wrong. And let me start by thanking the organizers of this conference, particularly PAVIT, for including transit in the category of possible topics. Perhaps I'm not talking about the critical connotations of the word transit. I just have such a rich and numerous experience of being a transit passenger that I was fascinated by the word. Come to think of it, the word also reflects the current situation of critics at the crossroads. I have been involved in IATC, the association, activities since 1994, when we had our Congress in Montevideo, Uruguay. It took me 36 hours to get there from Seoul. And 2 years later, I was elected as an ExCom member in Helsinki, Finland. Another 2 years later, I was elected vice president at the Congress in Gdansk, Poland. After 10 years as vice president, I was elected president at the 2008 Congress in Sofia and served 3 terms until the 2014 Congress in Beijing, China. During these 3 decades of service, I have taken extremely many international flights around the world, mostly to and from Europe. Attending our congresses, ExCom meetings, international theater festivals, as a juror or guest of keynote speaker at festival organizers' conferences, I have flown around the world at least 30 times. I haven't counted the number of flights, but I think it's easily over 100. This means that I have been a transit passenger more than 200 times round way. How can I resist the temptation to use the word transit in this speech? Sometimes the transit is very efficient, so I get on the connecting flight within 2 hours. In this case, I'm very much relieved to have time to stretch my back and take a short walk. Unfortunately, this is very rare. Most of the time, I cannot enjoy the luxury of a direct flight from Seoul to my destination and have to change planes on average of twice. The worst case is when I have to wait for hours at the airport. I have never got used to it. It always bothers me. The longest time I had to wait at the airport was 21 hours at Doha Airport on my way home from the Varna International Summer Festival 2021. I was almost killed by this cruelly inhuman route. Only once in my career have I felt that the long transit hours are rather too short. Only once. That is when I returned from Tehran, Iran, after serving as the president of the jury of the 28th Farsi Festival 2010 and had to spend 11 hours at Istanbul airport. And I was almost dead when I arrived in Istanbul. But suddenly I remembered I had a very good friend in Istanbul whose name is Zeynep Oral, our honorary vice president, who was and still is a big shot in Turkish media. I called her very early in the morning and asked if she would meet me during the day. And she said, "Of course, yes." And I took a taxi to a beautiful house on one side of the hill Bosphorus. She was so generous to entertain me all day. We had a wonderful chat in a history cafe about theater criticism in Turkey, and about IATC matters. And I remember that meeting as one of the best experiences I had during my transit period. When IATC held its Congress in Yerevan, Armenia in 2010, I had to stay at Moscow airport for 13 hours before taking the flight to Yerevan. Fortunately, in an airport cafe, I met some Indian delegates who looked already drunk. We talked a lot and had a fun of killing time over several glasses of beer. For the most part, however, my transit hours were not very exciting. When I was waiting for the connecting flight to my destination, it was relatively easy for me to use those hours to strategically prepare how to fulfill my mission at the destination. But when I came home, the long transit time was exhausting, painful, and depressing. If you will allow me to be a little bit sentimental, let me say this. As a lifelong theater critic, I feel like I'm in transit camp at the IATC, this Amy's airport. That is to say, I'm exhausted, in pain, and depressed. I hope this distressing symptom is not transmitted to you. Why is this? Theater criticism has lost its impact on both practitioners and theatergoers. I don't know how it is in Thailand, but it is definitely the case in Korea. About 20 years ago, one of the leading directors said publicly that my reviews have the power to change the theater scene in Korea. And I took that as a compliment. Now we have lost its power. That power. Why is that? First of all, the critical space has been so radically reduced for a long time that it is almost non-existent. Most of the theater reviews by members of Korean Theater Critics Association are published in 3 journals: the Korean Theater Review, the Korean Theater Journal, and Performance and Theory. These 3 journals are rarely visited by the general public and are shunned by most theater practitioners. I don't even want to talk about the circulation of each journal because it's so ridiculous. How can we have the power to change the theater scene in the midst of disinterest and disregard from our target readers? I often ask myself, who are we writing for? Being a theater critic seems to be close to being an unemployed worker. This situation depresses me, as if I were living in the valley of death. Secondly, we critics are unfairly but rightly accused of causing and creating this dystopian situation for ourselves. The vast majority of theater critics in the world teach at the university level. That means they write to stay alive. Publishing is their job security. Instead of trying to communicate with general readers and theater practitioners, they focus on impressing their professional community with their knowledge and knowledgeability. Many of them compete with each other with esoteric and highly theoretical reviews, flooded with so many counter-communicative terms of their own making, as if they are writing in a foreign, no, more than that, in an alien language. We are caught in the curse of knowledge. This fashion aggravates the marginal situation of the critical community. How do we find our way out of this suffocating transit camp? Today, as Billy Perigo says in the article in Time, quote, the most powerful AI systems think in human legible languages. This means that our knowledge and knowledgeability does not or will not matter very much. We need to move away from conventional logical writing in order to fulfill our critical mission, which is to get people interested in theater. In 2009, I launched Critical Stages, the official web journal of the association. And in my opening words, I talked about the 4 guidelines for raising people's interest in theater. I quote, interest can only be raised by interesting writing. And by interesting, I mean, 1, first, the criticism is accessible. 2, the criticism has academic depth in its analysis. 3, the criticism is accessible. No, I said this. The criticism has literary value in itself, both in style and creativity. And finally, the criticism conveys our whole experience of the theater and connects it to our daily lives, unquote. How can I disagree with these brilliant comments I made 15 years ago? But I know that we should take different approaches to achieving these guidelines because the world has changed beyond imagination, and we need to reflect that change in our writing. Only the fittest will survive. We already live in an AI-based society. We cannot now compete with AI in terms of knowledge and knowledgeability, which have long been our basic tools for logical writing when reviewing theater performances. But we can do better than AI if we base our writing on our own creativity. I will report on my long experiments in carrying out my own prescriptions for surviving in the deadly space of criticism. Throughout my experiments, I have tried above all to sound personal in my reviews, believing that the personal is powerful, maybe political. When I attended the Cry Over International Shakespeare Festival in 2022, just 2.5 years ago, I was invited by one of the festival organizers to give a lecture on theater criticism to a class of graduate students. In a nutshell, I told them to observe performances with an objective mind and translate that observation into a personal essay. In other words, personalize your observation. After my brief introduction, there was a question and answer session. However, to my disappointment, the first question the student asked me was about BTS. And to their disappointment, I had to admit that I didn't know anything about it yet. In fact, I have been trying to experiment with new forms of theater criticism for a long time to reflect a zeitgeist and relevant writing style. For example, from time to time, I have adopted an epistolary approach, beginning with, "Dear Mr. King, who has fallen in love with theater." This form allows me to be personal in analyzing, describing, and judging the performance. It really helps when you are struggling to find the right way to begin your text, because you're writing to a friendly person who will accept whatever you say. However, I must admit that this style has also provoked and annoyed some practitioners, especially when my review is not positive. They take it as a personal insult and challenge me with their own public letter, which also starts with "Dear Mr. King, who is supposedly or allegedly in love with theater." So it means that you have to have courage to try this approach, knowing that your personal is not their personal. I also experimented with writing a review in a dramatic form of a dialogue between myself and a member of the audience who had seen the same performance. It turned out to be a discussion between two critics if the performance was controversial, or a question and answer session between a teacher and a student, especially when the performance was unconventional. To my surprise, this approach was well received by the practitioners. Perhaps because this form was seen as very helpful in making the performance well appreciated. I can be personal in my choice of partner and still be seen as fair. I don't do this anymore, but perhaps you should try. Surprisingly, a certain postmodernist director told me that my dialogue review was the first and best reading of his experimental production, which was very postmodernist. Ironically, this comment was made as a protest when he was not very happy with my judgmental review of his new show years later. Recently, I have been focusing on another form of theater criticism, namely reviewing as storytelling. I think this approach is the most personal form I have ever conceived. It rejects conventional, logical, judgmental writing. It moves towards unconventional, creative, and critical writing. In this approach, I try to be a storyteller or a self-portrait artist. Using all the experiences I have or I am forced to have, such as the environment of the theater building, my neighbors sitting around me, and most importantly, my deepest relationship with the production. I look at my reaction to the show, psychologically, physically, and spiritually. It is my whole existence, and write about that experience as a story. I want to share my experience with my target audience. I'll give you two examples of this. Example one on Declan Donnellan's Hamlet, which I saw in Craiova last year. I quote, "The second production I saw here at the Craiova International Shakespeare Festival, Romania, was Hamlet, directed by Declan Donnellan, with actors from the National Theatre of Craiova. The stage was set up with high raised seats on either side of the stage, dividing the audience into two sections, with a long runway on the floor in between. So the audience is looking down on the action. Beyond the two ends where the actors enter and exit is a huge auditorium with more than 1,000 empty red seats and a white wall that must be at least 6 meters high. As you follow the actors' movements, we are confronted with the vast emptiness of life, consumed by bloody lust for sex and power, and the stark reality of an insurmountable psychiatric world. The actors are all dressed in modern clothes. Guns are mostly used instead of swords. Later, when Hamlet and Laertes duel, swords are of course used. The play opens with Hamlet leaning against the white wall and shouting, "To be or not to be, that's the question." To which the actors on stage respond with applause and cheers. It's a hopper stuff. The rest of the play, however, follows Hamlet's text very faithfully, with no new interpretations, no changes in composition, and no obvious visual revolution. Having high hopes for Donnellan's play, I became increasingly skeptical as the play progressed. In addition, I was seated on either side of a man and a woman with bad theater manners. On my right, a tall young woman leaned forward and twisted sideways throughout the show, interrupting my view. And on my left, a middle-aged man of enormous stature, breathing heavily, exerting psychological pressure on me. This is part of my review on critical stages, issue number 29. Example 2, on people, their bonus after the battle. I quote, "What moved me the most was their bonus' own performance. His performance, like the voice of a man crying out in the wilderness as he plunges into dark story, like the mad Lear crying out in the stormy wilderness, like most every man screaming in terror, is irreplaceable. I fear that if I had seen this play face to face, I might have exploded by the emotional impact the performance imposed upon me. I saw this in the summer of 2023 in Varna. Matti Linaburi, the editor of the Critical Stage Performance Review section, responded to this experiment as follows. He's a very difficult man, as Sabas knows very well. I quote, "Thank you for your review. You have a unique way of combining the two genres in one sentence. In my opinion, this really engages the reader, who feels as if they are sitting next to you in the auditorium. I really admire your analysis. You really see through the surface when you need to. This is exactly the response I want to get from the readers." And my difficult editor of performance reviews of the critical stage wrote to me this way. I was very happy to read this response. It's almost over now. I don't have many examples of this because I don't write about contemporary Korean theater due to some conflicts of interest. I was the artistic director of the Korean National Theatre Company for 4 years, and I have developed a very close relationship with the theater practitioners. But our code of practice in the statutes of IATC prohibits you to write about somebody who is very closely connected to it. So I don't write. So I only write about the international theater. So this is it. I hope this personal speech of mine will motivate you to seek a new approach to theater criticism. I don't say I'm perfect in doing this. My storytelling skill is getting better and better a little bit by little. So I still working on it, but I think I'll try to do it more. I hope. You remember that this empirical reviewing can include your analysis, description, and even your value judgment in a subtle way. Don't forget this truism of our time. The realer the narrative in your criticism, the funnier, the more interesting will be. Thank you very much for your serious listening.
Thank you very much. It's always enriching, like to hear your speech, given your long career as a professor, as a theater critic, and as a arts administrator. So I always learn from your speech, and I'm sure that all of us can learn from this experience as well. Okay, we are moving on, and we have planned to have 3 lead discussants. Okay, they will be brief. Okay, they will just share their quick thoughts on Yun Cho's keynote address, and then we'll open the floor for anyone, okay, including those on Facebook Live right now, including those on Zoom right now. We are a hybrid conference, so we'd like to ask each and every one of you to share your thoughts, because I think that's a spirit of IATC. Okay, first is our editor-in-chief of our journal, Critical Stages. I'm sorry. Okay. First is the Vice President of IATC. Okay. Please welcome Jean-Pierre Han.
Bonjour. C'est un cadeau empoisonné que m'a fait Pawit d'intervenir, enfin de dire quelques mots après l'intervention de Yun Cheol, parce qu'à vrai dire, je suis exactement sur la même longueur d'onde, si je puis dire, que Yun Cheol.
I will translate for Jean-Pierre, but keep in mind that I'm French speaking first and foremost. So Jean-Pierre told us that it's a poisonous gift to ask him to comment on Mr. speech because he is exactly on the same page.
Donc, comme vous le voyez, je vais vous parler en français sans aucun problème, dans la mesure où, vous le savez peut-être sans doute déjà, le français avec l'anglais est la langue officielle de l'AICT.
Jean-Pierre is perfectly at ease to speak French because, as you all know, French and English are the 2 official languages of IATC.
Alors, je disais que j'étais sur la même longueur d'onde, c'est-à-dire tout à fait d'accord avec tout ce qu'a pu dire Yun Cheol, même si j'ai appris certaines petites choses le concernant. Ce qui est vrai, pardon de parler de moi, mais c'est sous la mandature de la présidence de Yun Cheol que j'ai été nommé par sa vie vice-président de l'AICT d'une part, et que d'autre part, Yun Cheol m'a confié la tâche de diriger les stages pour jeunes critiques, qui est une chose extrêmement importante au sein de l'AICT.
It's under the presidency of Yun Cheol that Jean-Pierre has been named vice president of IATC and chair or responsible of Young Critics Workshop, which is an important part of IATC activities.
J'ai donc travaillé avec d'une manière très proche de Yun Cheol pendant toute sa mandature, c'est-à-dire pendant 6 ans. Et j'en suis très très fier et très heureux. Alors, par rapport à ce que dit notre président, néanmoins, j'ai quand même appris certaines petites choses le concernant, notamment qu'il avait écrit ce texte mettant face à face des critiques, discutant effectivement de notre métier. Et j'ai trouvé ça extrêmement intéressant. Et surtout, il y a une autre chose qui m'a paru intéressante sur la toute fin de son intervention, c'est lorsqu'il parle de la relation entre les critiques et les praticiens dans le jeu de base qui fait yoga.
Jean-Pierre has been very glad to work closely with Young Chao during his presidency, and even though he knows him quite well, he learned something from his speech. For example, the type of criticism he tried, and he found very interesting the dialogue that was made between two critics. And also, what I find interesting is the relationship between practitioners and critics.
Alors, bien sûr, je ne peux qu'être d'accord sur ce qu'il dit concernant le déclin de la critique, mais surtout, je suis plutôt d'accord sur, au fond, l'art de la critique qu'il nous propose.
He of course agrees with the decline of critics, but he also agrees about on the art of critics of criticism.
Parce que c'est bien de cela dont il nous parle durant toute son intervention.
Because it is what he talks about during his intervention, the art of criticism.
Mais bon, je vous rassure tout de suite, je ne vais pas continuer à commenter plus ou moins bien ce qu'a dit Michel très bien.
Be reassured, he won't comment anymore on what Young Xiao said very well.
Et donc, je vais vous dire très brièvement quelques mots concernant justement ce colloque. Je dois dire qu'à l'appel de la contribution pour ce colloque, j'ai été très agréablement surpris du sujet proposé, qui tournait autour de la déclinaison à partir de la racine trans.
Jean-Pierre has been gladly surprised about the theme of the conference. What is the prefix? I don't know if you say that. Trans.
J'ai trouvé la proposition extrêmement habile, car elle permettait de décliner absolument tous les sujets, toutes les notions concernant les représentations et l'acte théâtral d'aujourd'hui.
It is a very witted kind of a team, because it permits it allows to treat every aspect of theater criticism, and every subject that is related to theater.
Alors, à la lecture de cette proposition, j'ai immédiatement laissé vagabonder mon imagination, et j'en suis arrivé à la conclusion que si je devais, je ne le ferai pas, mais si je devais intervenir, je proposerais un sujet qui tournerait autour de la question de la transgression.
So he let his imagination get wild, and thought that if he were to submit a subject, it would be about transgression.
En effet, la transgression me semble englober à lui seul tous les autres trans. Ce que j'aime bien dans la notion de transgression, c'est la marche en avant qu'elle indique. Donc une certaine dynamique, le fait qu'elle aille au-delà de ce qui existe. Le terme en lui-même contient une dynamique qui est la dynamique même de l'art.
Jean-Pierre's speech is so well written that it's very difficult for me to translate. It's not your basic text. Okay, so the trans team regroups all the transgression. Actually, transgression regroups for him all other trends. And it evokes a walk towards a movement, a dynamic, and that goes beyond. He doesn't remember what it says. That goes beyond the. It was beautiful what you said. I just don't remember that.
Oui, ce que je disais, c'est que j'aime bien cette notion de transgression parce qu'elle indique une certaine dynamique qui est la dynamique même de l'art théâtral.
It's the dynamic of art, of theatrical art itself.
D'ailleurs, si on y regarde de plus près, l'une des premières transgressions que l'on peut apercevoir au théâtre en tant que sujet, c'est la représentation du personnage d'Antigone de cette pièce.
So if we look at it closely, we observe that one of the first transgressions in theater is the one of Antigone from Sophocle.
Et d'ailleurs, ce n'est pas un hasard si aujourd'hui il y a énormément de représentations ou d'adaptations de cette pièce, notamment dans le théâtre français. Et toutes les jeunes compagnies, les jeunes metteurs en scène essaient d'adapter au temps d'aujourd'hui l'histoire d'Antigone.
It's not the fruit of hazard that there is so much adaptation nowadays of Antigone, notably in the French theater, and those adaptations are set in the present time.
Bon, je le répète, pardon de me répéter, mais je pense que cette notion de transgression définit à merveille l'art du théâtre. Il présente en outre l'avantage d'englober bon nombre des autres notions qui dérivent de la racine trans. Et à essayer de voir comment on pourrait décliner cette notion de transgression tout au long de l'histoire du théâtre, avec des périodes flamboyantes, toutes les grandes périodes de théâtre, que ce soit le 5e siècle grec, l'époque élisabéthaine, le siècle d'or espagnol, le siècle classique français, toutes ces époques-là transgressent ce qui a existé, ce qui existait avant. Donc il y a comme ça une dynamique
at the risk of repeating himself, he says that the notion of transgression regroups all the other notion that works with trends, and he thinks it's very interesting to decline those all along the history of theater. For example, in the 5th century Greek, 5th century, and the classical century in France, every movement of theater has transgressed the one before.
Et donc, à chaque fois, c'est la transgression par rapport à aux lois théâtrales du moment, à un état de la société. Et dans ce sens, d'ailleurs, c'est à ce niveau-là, il me semble, qu'on touche à la question du théâtre politique.
It transgresses the laws of the theater of its time and the state of society, and it's this way that we work on the transgression of the state of things.
Voilà, c'est simplement quelques mots par rapport justement à ce que j'ai lu, la proposition de colloque, quelques pensées qui nous sont venues et qui m'évitent pour le moment effectivement de revenir à ce hall avec lequel bien sûr je ne peux qu'être.
So those are a few words that came to his mind with the theme of the conference, and which excuse him from going further on commenting the beautiful speech of Jean-Pierre.
Juste un mot quand même pour revenir. Je l'ai déjà dit, mais je le répète parce que ça me semble extrêmement intéressant. est important, et on peut discuter à partir de ça. Lorsque Yunchao parle de la relation entre les critiques et les praticiens, il explique les raisons pour lesquelles, d'une certaine manière, au fond, il n'écrit que sur l'international. Ce qui lui évite très sagement d'avoir à parler des spectacles des gens qui lui côtoient et les connaissent très bien.
So once again, he thinks it would be very interesting to discuss the relation between practitioner and critics. And he finds interesting that Michel only write about the international theater because it saves him from writing about people he knows very well. And may I add that in Quebec, because we're a little society, there's many critics that prefers to write about cinema because it comes from other countries rather than on theater because pretty much everyone knows.
Merci.
Okay, merci beaucoup. And thank you, Sophie. Okay. Julio, who's the president of the Quebec Association of Theatre Critics, who helped translate for us. And we would love to hear your comments, your thoughts on Yun Cho's keynote address later. But now, please welcome Editor-in-Chief of Critical Stages, our association's journal, Savas Pasalidis.
I don't know. Thank you. Thank you, Poet, for this kind invitation to be here. I listened very carefully to what Yuncho and Jean-Pierre said, and it seems to me that what surfaces every time we talk about criticism is the possibility or the impossibility of creating room for trans criticism. That is, is criticism in need of a new book of Genesis, just like theater? Theater is experiencing this, is going through this phase of rediscovering itself. Aesthetically, ideologically, theater is trying to deal with a world that is much faster than theater itself. Due to high technology, theater is desperately trying to catch up with a world that is too fast. And as critics, our role seems to have changed. And every time I hear talks about criticism, I always wonder, is there still room for criticism? And if there is room for criticism, what is our role? Back home, in my home country, there is this strong, loud discussion about abandoning criticism for the sake of descriptive criticism so that we do not hurt artists. And whenever we use tough language as critics, we have artists kind of pointing a finger at us. Who are you to tell me what is right and what is wrong? That is, we are very much, our ability to say what is right or what is good or what is bad art is very much questioned, because, as you know, the question of authority in postmodern terms, the question of authority is very much up in the air. So what is left for us? We do not have the authority of criticizing, and we are asked or invited to describe what we see, and let criticism be an individual affair. That is, allow each spectator to criticize. So, in a theater house, everybody's a critic, which means that nobody's a critic. And I guess meetings like this are very important because they give us the opportunity to revisit our profession and rediscover its potential and also its new role in a theater world that is less receptive to criticism. They always tell you respect, respect. Does then the word respect mean lack of critical discourse? Do you respect someone if you do not criticize his work? Or if you do not criticize somebody's work is disrespect? So what are the limits of respect someone's work? And I would like to thank Pauit and his colleagues who gave us this opportunity to bring us together in this room to discuss all these major issues that our era has brought, and issues that are really burning issues. And it seems that as years go by, things will get much different with artificial intelligence and all other high-tech gadgets that enter our life. Criticism is in danger, and it's very urgent to rediscover the sustainability of criticism. Criticism has to stay in the market, and we have to discover the new character of criticism that will stay in the market and be critical, and not just a descriptive kind of writing. And I know major journals, I'm not going to give the names, but are major world journals that say we accept reviews that are descriptive, not critical. And it's very shocking. I know the journals. I can give you in private the names. That they make it very clear. I do not want you to criticize. I only want you to describe what you see. Anyway, these are some ideas to reflect upon and come up with our own reflections and our own feelings and our own ways of facing the many dead ends of critical discourse. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Hawid, again, for this invitation.
Thank you very much, Savas. And later on today, and also at the end of our session tomorrow, Savas would be the lead discussant as well. So he will listen to what everybody has been speaking throughout the 2 days, and then he would summarize. Okay, we're moving on. And now please welcome once again President of Quebec Association of Theatre Critics, who's also the monitor for our French-speaking group of Young Critic Workshop, Sophie Bouillot.
Hello, everyone. So, in Quebec, which is the part of Canada where people mainly speak French, so as you guessed, I'm a French Canadian. Media space for real criticism is as dramatically strong as my colleague as previously stated. In the recent few decades, it's quite a catastrophe. A few cultural journals and magazines has closed. In newspapers, the space devoted to criticism is notably reduced. And it's the same with in terms of television and radio program time that review theater and other cultural manifestations. And I'm not talking about the proficiency of those who take those stands. The situation seems almost desperate, except that I recently sensed a shift in the artist's state of mind about criticism. But it's a young artist. The young generation of artists seem to crave the profound and enlightened look on their work that can provide professional criticism. As the older generation tends to have kind of a scornful attitude toward critics, some young artists have shared with me or shown in front of me that they value our input and would like even to benefit from it in a larger scale. That is almost a small revolution in relationship in Quebec, at least between artists and critics. This phenomenon is still, I must admit, in a very budding stage, but I, for one, draw some hope from it. The Quebec Association of Theatre Critics holds each year an awards ceremony, and its impact and appreciation grows each year. Excuse me. It is the main occasion where I witness this new craving for criticism. I would be very curious to know, and I don't know if it's the right time for that, Pawit, but I would be very curious to know if any of your countries sense such of a change coming from a younger generation of artists. Has it occurred? Can it be possible? Can it be sensed? That's the question I would like to address you people.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for this question. I think we can use this question. Okay, so what are the changes that we critics are facing right now? And we have 22 minutes until we have our coffee break. So the floor is open. Who wants to start? Please, come on. Yes. Okay. Bo, can you give her a microphone, please? Yeah. Professor Hwa-won Lee, the president of Korea National Sector of IATC. Please welcome.
Yes, I was just elected as president of AITC about several days ago, so I'm not quite familiar with my job, but I'm trying to getting know. Well, anyway, I have been a professor in the theater department for more than 25 years, and I taught, and my former students are everywhere in the theater field. But before starting my job, I started to be a theater critic, and I wrote very many articles. But ever since I got my proficiency at the university, I was very busy, but also my students are everywhere in the theater field. Sometimes I'm afraid, have been skeptical or too much critical toward their work. So it's the same kind of feeling of you, I guess. So but finally, I'm thinking that rather than just to criticize, I prefer to analyze, and also analyze the elements used by the practitioners and the function of all the elements, and just to evaluate if they are functioning well or not. Just not personal, but I try to be more neutral, or more academic in what I'm doing than just personal. But I like very much writing. So sometimes, when I see a performance, it gives me a lot of inspiration, and I want to write a poem or essay or whatever I want. But whenever I have to really be a critic, I prefer just very academic and mechanical, or just to write, trying to see how this elements is working with other and to make the whole performance as intended by the director. That's my main point. But anyway, still I don't practice a lot, as Mr. Our honorary president told. I rather prefer to write about a foreign international entry rather than domestic because of all the reasons. Once I have been really hated by one actress, and I wrote an article that her voice was not quite appropriate with the role, and she was really, thought she is assaulted, and I don't know why, but she was being excluded from the foreign tour after, and so she had all the hatred for a very long time. So I think sometimes those kind of things happen to you also. But so I'm really, I have to be very careful writing my criticism. But what I'm happy as being a critic here is, well, for last 5 years, it has been 3 times that I'm presenting my paper at this conference. I'm very grateful for these opportunities because I can have my chance to introduce our theatrical words from my home country to foreign audience, so that I can be in the position of hands between two. So that's what I'm enjoying, and also I would like to urge my colleague critic to do the same job, and also I recommend them highly being a critic of analysis rather than just to criticize.
Kamsahamnida. Thank you very much. Okay, now we have a question coming in from Zoom. Okay, and the question is, what is the biggest crisis faced by critics in your city or country? In Singapore, so I assume that this is from our Singaporean colleague, the shrinking space for publication is a growing problem. Okay, so question again, what's the biggest crisis faced by critics in your city or country? In Singapore, the shrinking space for publication is a growing problem. Who wants to answer that? Anybody? We have lots of countries here. Or any of the young critics? Would you like to? What's the biggest crisis for critics in your country? So no problems at all. Everybody's happy. Yes, Manabu Noda, okay, from IATC Japan, and also ex-com of IATC.
Hi, I'm Manabu Noda, and I'm from Japan. And in Japan, theater is centered in Tokyo, and there used to be so many theater reviewers writing for daily newspapers, both across both national and regional. But number one, those theater reviewers, journalists, they are decreasing in number because newspapers are now offering smaller and smaller space in newspapers. Why? Because economically, theater is losing and has been losing its impact. And number two, well-selling shows don't need reviews. Whatever you write, they can sell the tickets. And number three, there are magazines and journals which used to publish relatively long reviews, but they are now abandoning the space for those kind of views. And that's why, I think it was in 1995, IATC Japan decided to create its own journal, which is called Theater Art, because we theater critics wanted to have our own space, and that's, I think, why Eugene Kim started to the critical stages for IATC, and now Sabas is the editor-in-chief, and he has served in this very cherished and revered position for many, many years. We've got to really thank Sabas for that. So what would I like to say? I'd like to say that, well, we must create our own space, whatever it may be, and in that space, well, we try to do our best to be not intimidated. Yeah, because, well, theater is in itself a trans-subjective place. You get threatened by the stage if you're audience, and you get threatened by the audience if you are on stage. If Hamlet starts like this, well, Bernardo says, "Who's there?" And Francisco answers, "Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself." These are the two lines that Thomas Ostermeyer often quotes. Which one do you think is the stage? And which one do you think is the audience? This is the ultimate question that we must strive to answer as theater critics. And if we need our own space for that inquiry, we must create our own. So let me reiterate my thanks to Cyrus and for creating that sort of space. Thank you very much.
Arigatou gozaimasu. Okay. Anybody like to respond? Please ask Christina. Okay, Christina is our colleague from Bucharest, Romania. Please.
We also don't have space to publish, but there are a lot of bloggers who are unprofessional and write at a very, very superficial level. That's our biggest problem now, I think. And there are a lot of impressions, let's say, not critical, not professional, and they misguide the audience. I think this is the biggest problem now in our country.
Thank you. Jim Cho, would you like to add something?
I'd like to say this way: the more relevant question is there any country in which theater criticism, the space for theater criticism is growing? That could be a more relevant question for us right now.
Yes, please. Okay. Can you give your microphone to our colleague in the back, please? Thanks. And please introduce yourself, because we are on Zoom and we have a record.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Freda Fiala. I'm from mainly based in Vienna in Austria, and I think this question is really interesting. I was part of the Goethe Institute's program for critics at Kyoto Experiment Festival last year, where we were talking related questions a lot. Actually, also would like to give a shout out to the gentleman over there, Dairong from Taiwan, who was with me in this program. So we were discussing exactly that question, and I think in Europe, I can say for sure in Austria, let's say Central Europe, maybe Northern Europe as well, there's more and more theaters or performing arts spaces, also dance houses, houses for contemporary performance choreography, who try to make their own programs for criticism or their own publications, their own websites where they publish texts, So kind of trying to, combat this, what many people refer to as a crisis of public criticism by commissioning authors to write for their performance spaces. And I think that is an interesting development in the sense that, of course, when you would be asked to write for a theater, for their publication, that would come with certain impacts on your writing, right? No matter how close or distant you're from the artist, no matter how close or distant you're with the people who are commissioning such a text, but you would know inevitably that it is published in relation to the house itself. So this is something I have observed from the Central European perspective for sure in the recent years. And I feel like it's not talked about a lot, but I know that in my generation, I would say almost all writers that I know have chosen to publish this way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Any other perspective from any other? Please. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Dai Rong Yu. I'm the current president of IATC Taiwan section. And I would like to give some feedback about the challenge, the biggest risk that we experience in Taiwan, that our only and biggest performing arts magazine called Performing Arts Review and was changed to called Performing Arts Redefined a few years ago. It's a printing paper magazine, but it got canceled last year. It was published by our National Arts Center, National Performing Arts Center, and the reason to cancel the printed version is under the name of sustainability. And the cancellation not just cancel the printed version itself, but it can also cancel a space for public discussion. And what comes with it is, I believe the people who made the decision didn't thought about that the changing of a form of a critical space also goes with the editorial structure. So when the whole platform goes online, there's no, at the same time, there's no discussion and understanding of what could be a better digital critical structure for this kind of space to survive. And I think that's the biggest risk. Also, this kind of, when you see it at the very beginning that it's a very progressive decision and the idea behind it actually jeopardize the space of criticism. Yeah, that's what I would like to share.
Okay, thank you very much, our colleague from Taipei. Yes. And now we have a colleague from Singapore and from everywhere in the world. He has 2 apartments in Bangkok. Is that illegal? Okay. Okay. Here is he's a former artistic director of Bangkok Fringe Festival. Okay, and he's the one who introduced our keynote speaker, Pichet Kanchun, to Jerome Bell. And he's a dramaturg and producer and behind the success of Pichet Kanchun and myself, the performance who has since traveled to 80 countries around the world. Yes, so he's everywhere, and his vision is very unique. So he's here to join us. Please welcome Tang Fu Quen.
Thank you, Pawit, for an extended introduction. I always believe that the young generation has answers to our problems or crises, right? So, and because I believe in the power of the young, I'm looking in that direction because I assume you guys there constitute the future and providing possible solutions to what one crisis that has been identified, which is the definition of the practice of criticism vis-a-vis print, i.e. Text, i.e. writing, right? But of course, with the digital tools that we have today, it's questionable, right? Even in the name of sustainability, if writing is the only mode of criticism, right? The young are increasingly very visual in their tendency, right? So the screen is so much a part of communication today. So what are, therefore, my question to the young, and I would like to hear from you, is what would be other kinds of communication tools that you would be able to provide apart from writing, and having it only in text form? Is it possible that you do your own live show as a critic? Is it that you can appear on TikTok, right, to deliver your fresh post-performance understanding and review of the show? What other forms are there? So this is just really an open question so that we can have more hopeful possibilities ahead of us.
Thank you very much. And actually, I should add that it's Kang Fu Kuen, who was at the conference, IATC conference, that was hosted by our Japan's section in 2010. And he introduced me to Ivan Medisha. So yeah, he's a long time friend and collaborator as well. And we have a few minutes, maybe the last comments. Okay. Obstacles, crisis that you face in your country or city, or anyone on Zoom would like to speak. Anybody? Not really. Okay. Yes, Thanapat is the youngest member of IATC Thailand. Please, Bo, can you give a microphone to Thanapat? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I don't have problem with the microphone. That's okay. Okay. What the critics face in the present in Thailand, I have to say touch-free about what is space to public the critic, because in Thailand we have to accept about the truth that the people, all the audience in Thailand not quite popular to watch the play, and I have to respond that especially in the young critic in the Thailand is so really a few number at each year, because everybody when they learn about the theater or just a play theater, they have many numbers that they should be making a play but not critic the art. So the number of the critic is less than they expect in the future too. If you ask about what the critic faces, I have to say that the touchful is a space to public, because in Thailand is happen with the magazine and the book or maybe a newspaper, but nowadays it's break. It's not happening. It's happening in the Facebook or application on the online, such as Facebook or maybe just a blog. But we know that Facebook that the battery that engaged by the audience too. That's why we have to acceptable and develop and following the technology to use it. What is our audience to watch it or read it? The critic. I think the most that we can do is keep it as you say what you see in the world, and I would like to give it a word is compare with the daily life, compare with something is easy in your life that is easy to understand, not the difficult word but just easy to listen and easy to understand what is about it and what is happening to your life. And if we keep it in easily to read or understanding, I think the next generation will understand what is a play work and what is your listen and know about what is a beautiful play with you watch it already. I think we can do it as them.
Thank you very much. It's 11:01, so I have to end this session here. But I'd like to say that our colleague from Argentina, Halima, yes, is also watching us live now. So, hello, good evening to Buenos Aires. Yes, and this is also what's good about IATC. We have members all over the world, and what's good about the hybrid performance anyway. At 2. Okay. So we'll have a coffee break now. Okay, outside, and all of you are here. You are our guests. So please help yourself to Thai snacks and coffee and tea. And we will come back at 11:15. Okay, thank you very much for this first session.